Really know what's going on over there other than everybody's dumb.
The instant you step out of line, you say something that they don't like and they don't like you personally, they're going to use all those pre-existing laws and they're going to use it on you.
A woman exposed her male genitalia to women and underage girls. That's what happened.
It's peer propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way. It's super cringe.
Good evening, Eric Butler of TatumReport.com. We're not demonetized yet. What a record-setting thing that is to not be demonetized before we even start. So
Nice.
God bless YouTube. God bless the bunnies.
Thank you, Susan.
Getter. Thank you, Jason on Getter. Best podcast on Getter. We are live now, right now. Please watch us on there. I mean, you're watching us somewhere if you're hearing this. Or maybe you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcasts. How is your Labor Day weekend going, you commie?
Yeah, so far so good. I guess this is the unofficial end to summer, so maybe we can get back down into the double digits as far as the heat in Arizona is concerned. Fingers crossed. Don't have anything crazy planned. I think I mentioned this to you maybe off air. That was like thinking briefly about going to New York. But it just didn't work out. However, getting that close to going back has sort of motivated me, and I will probably be making a trip back there soon, along with a trip to my actual hometown of Oakland. I mean, I literally split the time between Oakland and San Francisco, so I know there's a lot of I don't want to say bad blood, but people just like New York, they're very territorial. Like, if you live in Westchester, you can't say you're from the city, blah blah. If you live in Oakland, you can't say you live in San Francisco. But I did basically split the time between the two, so I'd like to plan trips back to both of those places. And shout out. Didn't you just have a Danny Mullen on recently? He just dropped a video. I think it was in Oakland, California.
Right.
It was kind
haven't
of
watched that one yet.
I think it just came out this morning.
Yeah, it comes out on Sundays. Had
Okay.
Leo DiTavio on. Very good guy, Leo. God bless them both for responding to me. Sometimes I annoy people. I get these guys on that I'm fans of, and I talk to them. And sometimes I annoy them. And, long story short, I'm pretty sure Will Witt, I annoy him.
Well, I thought you and Alex Jones are both BFF now, right? You guys get the Merry Christmas.
I would love to get Alex Jones back on the show. The last time I called him, he didn't answer, and then he pocket dialed me, and I could hear him talking.
That's legendary, though. You can be proud of that. You got a pocket dial from Alex Jones, so kudos.
Yeah. Oh, I just heard him talking about something generic. I didn't know he didn't really hear what he was saying, but he was talking about setting something up. I don't know.
The frogs.
And but he did respond to me on text like the very first 2 days I had his number. He was so confused. Just a little throwback to him on my show. I was being like, as a joke, being like, I need to get on your texting list, Alex Jones. And he's like, oh, we can throw the number up on the how you get text updates. And then I'm guessing somebody here, no, he wants your phone number. He's like, what are you asking for, brother? I just want to be friends with you, Alex Jones. He's like, okay. But now their producers don't respond to me. I think I'm blacklisted from InfoWars, or I don't know what happened. I won't say that, but it would be an interesting thing to be banned from InfoWars, but I hope that's not the case.
Be very interesting. I don't know how you managed to do that, but
I'm controlled opposition by the UN, as they say. I'm sure Queen Romana's people say that. I'm sure that's always happening. But for Labor Day weekend, we can talk about Il Don Nildo Trumpo, as that one Twitter profile says. Let me blow this up for people a bit. So obviously we all know about the Mar-a-Lago raid and everything that happened, but it turns out, according to Becker News, shout out Kyle Becker, a bunch of the documents they had turned out to be empty. And we will look at the other side. I think it's USA Today has an article that this was pulled from. But here is Donald Trump looking hilarious and all the famous picture of the files they had. FBI's Mar-a-Lago raid has been heralded by anti-Trump media as the scandal to end all scandals, nail the coffin, tra-la-la, with a bunch of empty folders. And we see this picture floating around where people thought it was staged. Well, like, there's two sides to that. One, I thought you're supposed to be taking pictures of things as you found them. But on the other hand, maybe they're laying things out so you can actually see them. But judging by the 2A thing there, I think that's how you label evidence when you find it, is it not? Like Exhibit A or B, I don't know. It could mean anything, I don't know. But we have these top secret cover letters and everything. But it turns out a bunch of those were not containing anything. Who's your favorite former president, they say. Submit your email. So here's what they actually found. As USA Today reported, we'll get to them, the list described 31 confidential documents, 54 secret documents, and 11 top secret. So obviously there's levels. I had secret, I think, when I was in the Army. I don't know. Top secret, maybe. I don't remember because of all the stuff I learned about explode.
Confidential is the lowest. Oh, wait.
Yes.
Is confidential even a tier, or is it just secret and top secret? Or is it confidential, secret,
confidential,
and then top secret?
I don't believe is used in military. It's just confidential is like, your medical records are confidential or anything that you give to anybody.
Okay.
And then I think there's something above top secret, but I don't remember what it's called. 48 empty folders with classified banners on them. 42 folders marked return to staff, secretary / military aid. More than 1,100 government documents or pictures without classification markings, so they were unlabeled. It's weird that you say nearly 1,673 magazine, newspapers, or press clippings.
Nearly 1,700?
Yes. And 19 articles of clothing or gift items and 33 books. Hardly scandal of the century. Trump didn't pack up empty folders to take with him to Florida, is what their former federal prosecutor tweeted, trying to debunk it. And that's why we're going to look at USA Today, because I skimmed the USA Today article, and this was written by Kyle Becker himself, so shout out to him. They don't really, they come at it from the angle, which is unlike Becker's article. They don't come in at it from the angle of, they found nothing. They say classified docs were mingled with Trump's magazines and clothes at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, well, it was he was living there. That's what happens when you have where you live.
Well, they just took his clothes and everything, too. A more detailed list of the documents seized from Trump's Florida estate was released by overseeing the lawsuit. Aside from classified materials, they do go through the same list here. The contents of the 33 boxes not only highlight a potential security risk posed by the unsecured classified documents, but also underscore the chaotic nature of Trump's exit from the White House and his desperate attempts to cling to power. Okay, so we can see the Becker article was right wing, yes, and favored Trump, I would say, but they didn't say Trump's amazing and the FBI's pieces of shit. But the USA Today article is it's chaotic and
this is clearly an opinion.
Attempts to cling to power. We'll see.
This is this labeled an opinion? Politics?
No.
It's quite literally his chaotic. What?
Three guys. I love how they always have those mainstream media articles of 3 people it took to write an article. It shouldn't. I think they just want their name on the article so it shows up on their page because they've emailed some stuff to some guy. But come on, you're not that important that we need all 3 dudes. So meanwhile, the thousands of unmarked records recovered in the Mar-a-Lago search were not specifically identified. It was unclear whether the volume of material would factor into the judge's decision on whether to appoint a special master to oversee the document review. There's that same picture. Judge continues to weigh appointment of special master. That's basically what you just said there, dude. Active criminal investigation, empty classified folders. Although the newly
they bury that part
warrant,
at the bottom.
yeah. Although the The newly unsealed search warrant receipt does not contain enough information to determine what happened to the documents within empty classified folders retrieved by the FBI. One former senior White House information security official said the discrepancy raises serious concerns. It's tough to know, but empty folders could raise some alarm bells. Important decision memoranda and other papers. So here's what I think, Eric. I think when the FBI visited them months ago and said, you have to have these things secure in locked, I believe, safe or something like that, because this wasn't the first time, for people who don't know. They went over, they complained about it. Trump's people tried to adhere to their demands, from what I know, from what I've read. I think that it's probably likely or probable that they said, let's throw in some things marked classified and secret with nothing in them just to screw with them, because they're going to come back and try to seize everything. And there's probably not going to be anything in it. I mean, did we ever find out if there's nuclear codes in it? That's what they said was a possibility.
Oh, well, that's gone. That narrative sailed.
Yeah, I know. See, the thing is, and I was talking to John Doyle about this the other day. The thing is that especially up here in Canada, there's only like one step away from the government. Like, people we work with, people I've worked with, know personally the people that work in our provincial and federal government and the federal parties. And it took me a few years to get here, but I'm willing to say that a lot of them are not very smart. They're not very cool. You wouldn't want to be friends with them. A lot of them are losers. So I could see a world where Donald Trump and his people, maybe DJT Jr. or Eric Trump with his slicked hair, where somebody says, let's just screw with them. They're stupid. Let's go ahead and get them to collect this stuff. But I obviously have no way of knowing that. But I think that is a likely possibility, as opposed to, Eric, it being,
so you're kind of taking
we've lost all the
4D
we've lost
chess
all
route.
These documents. I think I am in this way, because it's not 2D, as in TOO. It's not too many dimensions deep. It's just one extra dimension deep, because as we've learned over the past 6 years, Eric, that all you have to do to be ahead of the narrative is like read 2 articles deep. Do what we try to do on this podcast, and we click on that extra link. And I think that's all you have to do to be ahead of the game on this, because we see the two sides of these articles here. We've presented Kyle Becker, who I think was a fair, whilst obviously a right-leaning article, to USA Today's, which is, if Becker's is 1 notch to the right, USA Today is 4 notches to the left. I think that's fair. What do you think about this?
Yeah, well, I do think there's a lot to be said, and I didn't realize, but you bring up a good point. Like, I honestly didn't realize that. Seriously, making that one extra clicking that one link in an article goes a long way. Like, when I'm doing it, like, it doesn't even, it just seems so naturally. Like, whoa, like, I mean, how you are constantly clicking the authors of the articles. It's like, it seems so natural to us, but people don't even get past the headline, so they don't know what's going on. That's the first thing. Second thing is that little sentence that you read, where it says, this should ring some alarm bells or whatever. It's like, what would have happened that they would have said, oh, okay, well, we tried, nothing to see here, move on. Like, it wouldn't matter. It doesn't even matter what happens out at that raid. Of course they're going to make it a big a big thing. It's like, what, I mean, you tell me, what could have happened? What could they have found that they would have said, okay, well, that's no big deal, we'll move on? And it's just so predictable, bro. Like, it's so predictable. How many, I mean, you could count on, your hands and feet the amount of hoaxes. Like, obviously, it all started with Russia. We know that they dropped Russia like a hot potato, pivoted to Ukraine, even though Joe Biden's the one that's in bed with Ukraine. Obviously, Rona, January 6th, P tapes, N-word, grab him by the pussy. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I think this is actually having the opposite effect. Like, I think about, not to name any names, it doesn't matter. It's a random coworker that I had when I first lived in New York. But I remember talking with somebody at a bar I worked at when I first moved to New York, and then being like, well, what is it going to take to bring this guy down? And I'm just sitting there. It's like, you don't like, it's all fake. And that, you know what I mean? Like, we constantly ask ourselves these questions on this podcast, like, is this going to wake people up? And I think this type of stuff, more so than libs of TikTok or all the fake Brian Stelter, all of that stuff, it's like when they keep doing it literally is Lucy with the football. So when you keep doing that, that's eventually going to get people to say, well, he's doing all this bad stuff, but nothing bad is happening to him. And then they're going to be forced to eventually click the link in that article or read past the headline and realize that they've been lied to the entire time. I hope.
Well, to your point about what would it take for them, as we look at the nice itemized list of documents from the FBI and organized into what boxes they found, I think they have to justify doing it. So they're never going to say, oh, we didn't find anything of substance, because then Trump's going to jump on that and be like, hey, look, they're politically attacking me. In my mind, I think it's pretty objective to say that it is a political attack. I mean, you're using your FBI. Like, you wouldn't go into Barack Obama's house publicly with a bunch of FBI people and be like, we're coming and taking this stuff. You would just be like, please send it back, and they'd eventually wait for him. And I know there's no way of knowing that, but I'm going to go ahead and assume it's fair to say that. I don't think it's unfair to suggest this. And then on top of that, we had this narrative of nuclear codes and everything, but none of these stories, and I went through the rest of the USA Today story, and we can look at it more in detail. That's the end of it there, with linking to these actual documents, but they don't actually have any story in here about what stuff was found that was so secret and top secret. The FBI
and what were they looking for? Right?
I don't know.
They weren't even looking for anything. They were grasping at straws. They weren't saying, "Oh, we think he has this document that's going to be very, it's going to be essential to national security." They went in there and said, we just got to find something. Just give us something.
Unless there's some secret conspiracy thing they're looking for, which people have said. I think people said they're pictures or like an Epstein list or something. But for the FBI, who leaks every single thing, that's why I don't shy away from calling the FBI very political. Everything gets leaked to the New York Times or Washington Post. You're telling me they haven't leaked a thing yet? I mean, maybe I could be wrong. If anybody wants to type in the chat or here or after the fact, or we can come back. There hasn't been anything leaked that's like, look at this insane thing that Trump took from the White House. Like, the Secret Service's criticism of him, or stuff that they found that he might be like internal investigation about him. They haven't said anything, as far as I know, that they've found that substantiates, one, going in there, and two, some sort of smoking gun. Now, maybe you can justify this by saying, hey, he has classified documents he's not supposed to have, and that's why we were there. And it wasn't technically a raid. We were going and telling them that we're taking this stuff. We didn't burst the door in. However, they asked them to turn off the cameras. And then you get into the counter narrative that Trump's people put out, which said everything he said, he had a standing order that it would be declassified upon taking it out of the White House, which is an easy thing to say, because as long as you get people on your team agreeing with you and say, yep, that's what he said, then you could say that about anything you took out. That would be a fair criticism. However, it is true that the president or the vice president can declassify anything they want. So all he has to do is wave a magic wand, or Mike Pence has to, punch a kid in the face like in those cartoons and say it's unclassified. Mike Pence fights gay aliens and stuff. Those are funny memes. But that's all they have to do to unclassify them. And if Trump's just going to be like, if that's how weak your argument is going to be, is that like, you have stuff that we don't want you to have, even though we offered it to you before, then he's just going to come back and say, well, I declassified them. How about that? And then in my opinion, it's sort of case closed, unless you have something that's so truly devastatingly insane for him to have that he shouldn't have it, and that he just basically made an excuse. But that's the power the president has. I'm sorry. And even if he does have that stuff, according to them, they adhered to what they needed, which was putting away in like a locked safe and having a guard near it. And we all know the Secret Service stays with presidents once they're not in office anymore. So who knows who's telling the truth here? That's why I think it was such a stupid move by the FBI. And if you're a regular person in the middle, which I kind of don't believe there's anybody who's really in the middle. I think there's people that don't care, don't pay attention, for better or for worse. But if you're a person who's undecided, let's say, as to who to vote for, I would hope that you see this as a political move by the FBI, and of course, Trump's going to come back with his own political talking points.
Yeah, well, look, in my mind, there's no way to justify this. You could justify this if you haven't been on a wild goose chase for the past 6 years. If you didn't write articles about impeaching him on inauguration day in 2017, if you didn't claim I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You've been going after this guy before he was president, completely during the presidency, and now after he's also president. So there's no justification here. It can't be done. And I think it was Scott Adams, right, the Dilbert guy, who tweeted a long time ago that if Joe Biden wins the election now, it's up for debate. He was installed, if you ask me, but I don't want to get too hairy here. But he said something along the lines of Republicans will be hunted if Joe Biden wins. And this is exactly what we're seeing. We're still seeing January 6 protesters in prison. I mean, I hate to harp on it because I talk about this all the time, but it was just so triggering. And I just don't think anybody will ever really understand if you don't live through that two-tier justice system. So protesting the lockdown in lower Manhattan with 24 people, half of those old enough to be my mom, with little American flags, and we're arrested in 45 minutes. In that very same park, those people camp out for 3 weeks because some guy in Minneapolis died. So we see it. I mean, granted, those are completely different situations, but we can see the two-tier system. We know that Facebook, basically censored the Hunter Biden story. Twitter did it as well. But you can guarantee, now, obviously, we can't prove this, but like you said, I think it's a safe assumption that if the New York Post had some, real, tea, as the kids say, about Donald Trump Jr. or Eric Trump, they would not be banned from sharing that. It would not be at one point, and I don't use Twitter. You can still follow me there. But anyways, when you couldn't even share it in a DM. And I've had things on Instagram. I think it was a Gavin McGinnis, like censored dot whatever. What's his
Censored.tv.
Yeah, censored.tv. I'm maybe trying to send it to you or maybe another one, a friend of mine. This was a while ago though, but I couldn't send a censored.tv link on Instagram. So that's what they're doing. And to say that this is the peak. I hope this is the peak. I don't know how much worse it can get without actually sending people to the gulag, but this has to be the peak of that two-tier justice system. We know all of the creepy, weird things that Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, the entire family, James Biden, all these guys are doing. There's never going to be an investigation, but for the FBI to go up to Mar-a-Lago and then USA Today to say that, well, finding these empty documents, these empty folders is enough for alarm, because there was no other answer. Like you said, if they say, whoa, we didn't find anything, then that's going to give Trump more ammo. I think either way, Trump has ammo. But again, I guess to just bring it full circle, it's like that should be enough. If you even pretend, I just don't see how anybody can even make an argument for this. I mean, if you pretend, like, if you want to be a David Pacman or H3H3 or somebody like that, like, I don't understand how you make an argument for this. I would love to see it. I would love to see anybody try to justify why this makes sense, especially with what we know about the Biden family.
Well, if you recall, they who's the meme guy who's making a lot of memes during the election period? His link got banned to his website. They kicked him off of Twitter and they kicked him off of Twitter and Facebook, and then he made a website, and you couldn't even link to that. There's a world where Barack Obama, I guess a universe where Donald Trump played ball, and he got a podcast which failed on Spotify. He got a Netflix show that failed on Netflix. But just like Barack Obama wins Emmy for narrating Netflix National Park series. Now, there's no world where Donald Trump and the leopard spots are for hiding from predators, but there's no world where he wins anything. And I pardon?
You got to work on your Trump.
I don't know. I guess he's not the best thing. Anyways,
Barack Obama, Michelle, it's very, very interesting.
But look at the title though: Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen's Renegades. First of all, like I saw a clip of Beto on, I think somebody, Stephen Colbert or somebody's. They play along and then they let them into this whole. It's like you have access. Bruce Springsteen, this famous musician.
And can I just say really quick?
Yeah.
The red glasses on Springs, that's a dead giveaway. The red glass, like that's like the
How
blue
come
hair.
So many old, so how come so many old celebrities, male celebrities, once they get old, they get kind of gay. Like, Howie Mandel is in commercials up here a lot now. I forget which store. Now he's wearing, like, they always go to these weird colored glasses to try to make them be accentuated, and they get all wiry armed and like a lot of this and
the limp wrist.
I don't know. A lot of wristing, yeah. So I'm in Starbucks today. Don't hate me for that alone. But there's one woman in the building wearing a mask, an old white woman. And not only is she wearing a mask, but she's got her phone. When she takes her phone out of her purse, she's got it in this, like, you know that soft, weird paper some packages come in? It's not plastic, but it's like a soft, felty, like, wrapping.
Oh, yeah,
She has her phone in that to protect it whilst inside her purse, and she's taking that out. No problem taking the coffee from the barista, though. That's safe. But we need to keep my phone a sort of special thing. I don't know why. It's your phone. Like, your germs are on it. I don't understand. I've wanted to say that there's...
No, dude, people, they're afraid of their own shadow. I mean, I remember seeing it in New York where people, they weren't even wearing the plastic or like rubber gloves or whatever. They were wearing like
gardener
mittens,
gloves,
like winter mittens in the middle of
summer. A lot
of
Chinese people around here wear gardening gloves.
What is that about? And sorry, since we're going with anecdotal stories, like I was at the grocery store the other day and I saw a woman, and this is funny because Brandon Tatum, TatumReport.com, of course, he has a shirt, a merchandise, that he sells, whatever the YouTubers do. Go to TatumStore.com, whatever. And he has a shirt that says "Faith Not Fear," right? And it's a decent slogan, whatever. And I saw a woman in the grocery store wearing a shirt, not from Tatum. It was a different brand, clearly, because it was a completely different design, but it said "Faith Not Fear." And she's wearing not one, but two masks, an older black lady. And I just thought, do you even know what any of this means? I mean, you're walking around a Sprouts grocery store in a blue mask with a black N95. Like, is it an N95, the one that kind of looks like a duck beak or whatever? So you put the blue mask under and then the black triangular mask on top, and you're wearing a shirt that says "Faith Not Fear," while you're clearly living in fear at the grocery stores.
That'd be like wearing a gas mask with a mouth guard underneath. The blue mask. An N95 does something. It doesn't stop you from contracting diseases. It's for large particles of dust. That's why they wear them on construction sites. And I like to point out to people that when I was going through the gassing in the military, the old gas building, you didn't wear an N95 to prevent yourself from breathing in tear gas. Sorry. And those are huge particles. You can see the tear gas floating around in the air. You can see it. It's not a microscopic organism, but I digress.
Yeah, sorry.
Barack Obama. It's okay. It's just stupid. Barack Obama wins an Emmy for some reason to go with his 2 Grammys, of course. Best narrator for his work on Netflix documentary, Our Great National Parks. We've got a park. It's national.
Your Obama's way better than your Trump. Okay.
Thank you. It's all about the cadence with Obama. The 5-part show, which features national parks from around the globe. It's produced by Barack and my lovely wife, Michelle. Higher Ground is their production company. They have to give them this stuff because their own stuff fails. The Clinton stuff will fail. The Obama stuff failed. I think the Clinton stuff did fail. I'm thinking of Meghan Markle's extremely overproduced Spotify show now. They all fail. It's just
she took down Joe Rogan. She's more popular than Joe Rogan. Everybody loves her.
They're just like, you have to, like, okay, you don't have to censor Joe Rogan, but you got to give all these people shows, all right? Because, like, and this isn't a dig on girls, and I know that's a funny way to start, but girls, they don't listen to podcasts like that. And I know I'm sure I can justify my opinion with search results that fit my narrative, but just on the surface, women read books, whereas most men don't. but men listen to informational podcasts, whereas
Well, they
women
listen
listen
to
to
their-
lifestyle podcasts
The
about
murder
sex and
mysteries or no?
I don't
Murder-
think so. I
Oh.
don't know any girls who are listening to podcasts like that. That could be just me. None of the girls I work with talk about this great podcast they listen to.
No, you
Um,
actually bring up a great point. I've never heard a woman say, "Oh, did you?" I mean,
Listen to Rogan yesterday.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say Nelk, but like obviously they're not listening to Nelk Boys
Yeah.
podcast. Like,
I listen to Rogan. I sometimes listen to the Full Send podcast. I listen to Dave Portnoy, the comedians, King, the Sting, and the Wing, which is Brendan Shaw, Theo Vaughn, and Chris D'Elia. I listen to Chris Jericho. Sometimes I listen to the Entourage podcast. It's a good one. I don't
What's
hear
the
any
Sunny
girls at the office
podcast?
talking about that's it there too. I don't hear any girls at the office talking about that sort of stuff, even in their own genres. I think for the most part, that's why that one from Barstool, Call Her Daddy, was the most popular women's podcast of all time, because it's like Sex in the City is a podcast, from what I understand. But I digress. Obama's the second president to have an Emmy. You know, he's right on par with Dwight D. Eisenhower for a special Emmy in 1956, the guy who was taking you through World War II. The Audacity of Hope and A Promised Land. And now they go ahead and advertise his audiobook, which he got Grammys for.
wait,
Like,
hold on. Trump definitely for The Apprentice. That was a huge show, isn't that? Isn't TV? Is the Emmys TV?
I'm
I don't
sure.
even know. Like, he definitely should have been eligible. I think people used to love that show. Obviously, he doesn't stand a chance now, but my parents used
Listen
to
to
watch that
this.
show.
Michelle Obama won her own Grammy for reading her audiobook. How do you get a Grammy for just reading? You should get a Grammy for fucking
You know why?
how many listens it got to. If
You
that's
know
a thing,
why.
if she had the most listened to autobiography audiobook, then sure. But just because, like, that's insane.
You know
I
why.
guess that's just the wording. Oh, I know why. I'm being told there's a great comment here. Hello, I do graphic design. So if you need work done like a logo banner.
Oh, Twitch, shout out
Great.
Twitch.
Shout out Twitch, everybody on Twitch. Shout out Getter, uopod.com, unauthorizedopinions.com. Bed Bath and Beyond guy, and Eric
Wait,
sent me
hang
this.
on. Before we move on,
Oh, sorry. Did I go
have
too
to
far?
just say just the last thing about this. I mean, am I tripping? Is this timing weird? I mean, we have Brandon giving a speech from the depths of hell. We have him throwing more money out the window, more money to Ukraine. So they come out and say, "Remember how much you like Obama?" It just seems weird. Like, remember, like this is Joe Biden's black friend, right? Like they're trying to pull on those like nostalgia strings. Like, look how much you like Obama. Like he got an award.
Did you
It's like, dude, you
see
guys are
what
weird.
that Jack Boot guy said in an article? I
Max
gotta
Boot.
find that. Max Boot, excuse me.
Jack-
Jack Boot. That guy who's obsessed with the government. He said that Martha's Vineyard is perhaps the most modern example of and then another place that was so LGBTQ that he brought his son to a drag show, and he said they represent modern America more than anywhere else. Like literally this place where only rich people live, and then this other place that's hyper gay
Yeah.
is the modern America. Like
I did
it's
not hear
pretty
that,
insane.
but that guy is an extremist. I mean, and I mean that, and like seriously, not in the way that like if you don't agree with Joe Biden, you're an extremist. I mean, like that guy writes extreme articles for it's either the Compost or the Times or whatever it is. Like the guy's crazy. But
Indeed.
yeah, this is
So
this
the
is
Bed Bath and
crazy.
Beyond guy jumped off the Jenga building. Now I'll bring up a picture of the Jenga building. Can you explain the significance of that for our non-New Yorkers?
Yeah, so I mean, people call it the Jenga building. It's at 56 Leonard. It's just it changed the entire New York landscape. Now it was already built by the time I moved there, but it was kind of like I sort of compared to like the Salesforce Tower in San Francisco. Like it just changed the entire landscape of the skyline. It just changed that's not it.
That's not it.
That's in Vancouver. It's similar though. Like
Is it this?
that's the one. Yeah, 56 Leonard. Yeah, that's the one. So
How did you know that other building was in Vancouver?
it said I saw the thing. I just saw
Oh, okay.
but so this building came and it's like the picture of luxury. There's a bunch of celebrities that live in there. I think most notably for I guess a certain crowd would be Frank Ocean is a famous resident of 56 Leonard. And a side note here, I mean, because I used to work in real estate until I got rug pulled by Andrew Cuomo and the entire corrupt Democratic establishment. But anyways, one of the buildings, the last building that I worked at, which was in Williamsburg, is kind of a knockoff of 420 Kent, because you know how they get into these trends. So you go to New York now, and all the buildings look exactly the same. They're all they don't look exactly the same. Like that one does look unique, but it's all glass and steel. There's no more like Victorian. There's no more like concrete, or it's just glass and steel.
Right.
Floor to ceiling windows. And they have these weird tints on it, but it was I don't want to say it was a tourist attraction, but it was kind of like a deep cut. Like if you were into real estate, or if you were just wanted to go to Soho and look through all the shops, and you would see it. So it was very crazy. It's a notable building. Like that's why people call it the Jenga building. But for this guy to hop off, I mean, we're supposed to be doing great, right? We're told by Karine Jean-Pierre and the entire regime that everything's good. And now I'm sure this guy, look, I'm sure he had some personal things. I think they were talking about maybe even some insider trading. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But it's just a little bit strange that this guy who had only been with the company for a couple years hopped off the building and off one of the most famous buildings in New York City. Like it's just beyond me how this actually happens.
Well, it's said that they weren't doing too hot. Shares in the Union, New Jersey-based business, lost nearly a quarter of their value Wednesday after the company announced a restructuring that includes closures, layoffs, and possible stock offering.
150 stores.
Yes, that is a crazy-looking building. The company said it obtained more than $500 million in new financing and was reducing 20% of its workforce. It plans to close about 150 namesake stores, but it will keep its bye-bye baby chain, as we all want them to. Mid-August, shareholder activist. Okay, didn't know that was a thing. Ryan Cohen, the billionaire co-founder of online pet products retailer Chewy Inc., sold his shares in Triple B after taking on 10% stake just months before and pledging to make big changes. So maybe this guy told people, he's like, hey, look out, I'm going to do something. I don't know. That's hearsay. Judge, Your Honor. Crooked Canadian judge. I'm sorry. Well, they're not crooked. They're just very liberal. I'm going to get sued for that. All the judges are wonderful. This is my opinion.
In a video
we're performing
game.
here, Eric. We could smoke a cigarette because we're just performing and it's not illegal.
It was a dream I had.
I know, right? And then they go out to the building. So is it true, and this is what I've read before, Eric Butler of TatumReport.com, that in New York, there's a certain amount of vertical square footage that they allow buildings to get. So when you buy or you're going to build a building, you might not be able to build it very high because other places on the same block have bought out the vertical square footage, whereas you can only build something so high. So if I want to build a building 50 stories, let's say, I can then buy up real estate around me, vertical real estate, so that nobody can build. Mathematically, they're not allowed to build anything over 25 stories. Is that true? Is that a real thing? Do you know?
Yes. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of, I'm not a lawyer or anything, but it's basically called air rights. So,
okay.
So some buildings will even, when they're trying to sell or rent their places, they'll say, okay, we have air rights in all directions, so nothing can ever be built that will ever obstruct your view, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe that that's true. And you'll notice even in New York, you can look at a map, and you could probably find it on YouTube, but like in the financial district, like all the way down at the southernmost portion of Manhattan, where the World Trade Center is, there's a whole bunch of tall buildings. And then there's like, I don't know, between 15 or 20 blocks or something where they're all short. I mean, short in comparison. Like they're probably still the tallest building in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, but they're all small buildings. And then when you get all the way up to Midtown, they shoot up again because of some sort of weird zoning historical thing. So there's a whole bunch of stipulations. So at the most southern portion, you have these incredibly tall buildings like the World Trade Tower. Then you have like 15 or so blocks or something where they're all kind of modest and regular. And then when you get up to Midtown, they all shoot up again. So there's a whole bunch of, but think about New York. I mean, there's a rule for everything. This is maybe a little bit disconnected, but they're talking about actually implementing congestion fee for cars that want to enter Manhattan. So they're proposing charging you, I think, $23 to drive in a certain portion of Manhattan. Like, so they're already charging you a city tax on top of the state and federal, which I believe is the only city in the country that charges a city on top of state and federal. They never pick up the garbage. The cops are not going to come when you call them. And now they're saying, well, it's too congested. So if you want to drive here, you're going to have to pay us. I mean, you have to pay just to drive on the road, as if the tax dollars that you already spent didn't go towards that. Where did it go? Where did the money go? So there's a bunch of weird rules, I guess, to answer your question.
That's fair. Let's listen to most popular president of all time, Joe Biden.
81 million.
Imagine, Joe, if you turn.
Uh-oh.
So funny.
They don't want us to listen to Biden.
Imagine, Joe.
Why doesn't it work? Why doesn't it work? Anyway, so he talks of, yeah, I don't understand here. But if we just look at his quote here.
Now I don't I would like, whatever. Not that big of it. It's funny watching him like, ask me, Joe. Like, what are you talking about, bro? What are you talking about?
Imagine, Joe, if you turn.
All right.
They don't want us to see it. Yeah. He's spreading this lie, Eric Butler, that he's still going January 6th. Now we can go to the part in the speech he had the other night where he said, it seemed like over and over again, all he said was, Trump supporters are bad. They don't respect democracy. They're extremists, he mentioned. And then the next day he said, I don't believe any Trump supporters are a threat to the country.
He walked
like he forgot, or they, but he's saying in this clip, and this was a few days earlier, obviously, still about January 6th, they were trying to break down doors, trying to overturn an outcome of election, and killing several police officers in the meantime. That is verifiably false. You can call it a lie. Who knows if he even knows if it's a lie or not. Only person who died was that Ashley Babbitt woman, shot by Capitol Police. If you want to debate that, we can. I don't at the moment, but no police died from the riot there, or whatever you want to call it. Whatever is the most MAGA thing to call it, or whatever. I don't care what you want to call it.
Well, it was obviously a peaceful protest. I think that's pretty obvious.
Well, yeah, exactly. No police died. They tried to say a cop died the next day. They tried to say 3 cops died. No police died from it. None of it connected. You can research that till the cows come home. It's not a thing. So for him to come up there and to tell his audience, who probably doesn't pay attention to stuff, because that's why they're at a Joe Biden rally campaign, unless you're a guy or a woman who's just there like, I want to see what the president says, which is fair, then I'm going to go ahead and assume, like, look what the media's done to me, Eric. It's been a long time since I was able to be like, it took me a long time to be like, yeah, these people just don't know. Like, they're willfully not paying attention. But this is where we're at. Like, if you're at a Joe Biden thing, and you're not just there to hear what he has to say because he's the gosh darn president, and you're like, yes, Joe Biden, keep spending those money, keep throwing that to Ukraine, then there's some sort of disconnect there, and I'd like to have a 20-minute chat with you and change your mind. That's what my friend Dave says. He says 20 minutes to a person who's just like doesn't really pay attention and just has the mainstream narrative. It's all it takes to change their mind. Because what you have to do is you take one of those stories that was pushed hard in the media. You can go with Charlottesville. You can go with George Floyd. You could go with anything January 6th. Add a few facts in there. Hey, pardon?
Rittenhouse.
Hey, did you know that there was a bunch of FBI people in there? Did you see the footage of them letting them in? Did you know the people Kyle Rittenhouse shot were not black, actually? Did you know one of them was a rapist? All that stuff. And then people start being like, once you find out the media is lying to you about one thing, then you start to say, what else are they lying to me about? And then my process was way back in the day, let me just pick a story that I know the mainstream media is covering. Let me read about it for like a couple hours a day, however long you think, until you get a good grasp of it. Read at least 5 sources. Then go back to that source. It was CNN for me. And see what they have to say. And I found out that they just weren't talking about the truth at all when it came to Hillary Clinton's emails. So that's what I encourage people to do here. And for Joe Biden to come out and be like, hey, several police officers were killed on January 6th. That's just a blatant lie. And then let's see if it wants to work for an 11-second clip. I don't even know if I should try, Eric, but this is Joe Biden. I don't even know if it's worth it. We'll try.
Well, is it? Okay.
I don't think
all
I
right.
shared the audio. I'm getting audio from everywhere.
Well, I was just gonna say to your point, isn't this is that there's is it the Gelman amnesia? There's a name for this. I feel like for the sake of argument, right? If
Let's see if
for
this
me,
works. Hold on.
okay.
Do you realize the bullet out of an AR-15 travels 5 times as rapidly as a bullet shot out of any other gun?
That doesn't matter. If you got hit by a train, do you realize your body would fly 50 feet further than you got hit by a transport truck? Like, the bullet goes through you. That's all that matters, really.
It's scare. Yeah, it's scare tactics. But what I was gonna say is, and that's actually a perfect example. I'm not a gun. Of course, I lost all my weapons in a terrible boating accident, but I'm not I'm not a professional. I don't know all the ins and outs of every weapon, but that's actually a perfect example. For me, just for the sake of argument, you could take sneakers, right? Like if I grew up collecting Jordans and moved on to Yeezys and all this stuff, and I know about the aftermarket and I know how to spot a fake, and then you can read a mainstream news media article about it and you can say, well, they're wrong about most of this stuff. And then you can read another article from the same outlet and just believe it, right? So you haven't even, without even realizing that if they don't publish what you know to be fact correctly, then you can't trust them to publish anything else. I think there's like a name for that, like how they have the Streisand effect and all this stuff. I think it's Gelman amnesia or Gelman Murray or something like that. But that's what's happening here. So Joe Biden can talk about to his, NPC SJW weirdo, bot supporters that don't know what's going on. He can just say these things and they won't even think twice about it, because, and that's again another thing that we see why we see the censorship is because you can't have these people starting to get the information that we don't want them to have. It always comes back to the censorship. So it's crazy. Gelman amnesia.
Briefly stated, the Gelman amnesia effect is as follows. You open the newspaper to an article on some subject you know well. In Murray's case, physics. In mine, show business. Should be hyphenated. Murray. You read the article and see the journalist has absolutely no understanding of either the facts or the issues. Often the article is so wrong it actually presents the story backward, reversing cause and effect. I call these the wet streets cause rain stories. Papers full of them. In any case, you read with exasperation or amusement the multiple errors in the story, and then turn the page to national or international affairs and read it as if the rest of the newspaper was somehow more accurate about Palestine than the baloney you just read. You turn the page and forget what you know. Now that reminds me of one time I went back and read one of my old blog posts, and from when I was much younger. It wasn't Chanks either, from the Young Turks. If you recall his weird sex fantasy blogs, it wasn't anything like that. It was just like I read my own
Bernie
writing.
had that too, didn't he? Like, didn't Bernie Sanders have some weird, creepy?
He had something weird too. But it read to me like a Vice or a Vox article, and this was part of like my political transformation, we'll call it, where it's like I feel so vehemently positive that I know so, like, this is so obvious to me, and then I write it out, but I don't have any actual evidence of that. I found one link that agrees with me, and I link it in there, and like you don't read the article, you're just like, this seems to agree with me, that's fine. And that's how stuff is. You still see it, of course you still see it, because I was kind of that person. But what it is you just start with the road is wet and you work back from there, and therefore it must have caused the rain. The wet streets, what is it? Yeah, wet streets cause rain. You work backwards from there, and that's a big problem. And I'm guessing a lot of people don't realize it when they're writing it for these outlets because they've been stuck in that bubble the whole time. But it was like I was saying stuff about this insane thing that Ted Cruz wants. He's against Barack Obama's this gun legislation that Barack Obama wants, because one thing people know is that and I was so sarcastic and arrogant. One thing everybody knows is that there's not a gun crime problem in America. And then I went on to like Bernie Sanders or Ron Paul just doesn't understand why people should have health here. Blah, blah. It's just like it was like 10 years before I got into anything, and I was like, I can't believe that I did this, that I was so blind to what I was doing, where it's just like you have these preconceived notions about something and you have no idea if it's right or wrong, but you've been told that it's right so many times that of course there's, black people, unarmed black people are killed all the time. Of course it happens. And then you find a Washington Post article or something that says, yes, they get mishandled by police tons of times, and you don't read the statistics for yourself or anything. But that's what I think this effect is that you're talking about. So you can read an article and they have absolutely no understanding of either the facts or the issues. Just like I said, like your sneaker example. I could go into a store. I know what I like, and I can just be like, these are obviously the best shoes, and because they're $500, and then you can come in and be like, actually, these shoes are priced that way just artificially, and they're actually shit, and they'll fall apart in the rain. So
yeah, so the media is terrible, I guess, is the moral of the story. And
I guess that's the last thing there.
They've been lying, and they have been manipulating people and gaslighting people and turning people into extremists. And then, of course, telling you, if you don't believe them, that you're the extremist. That's what's happening.
Oh, man, everything Biden said was literally a crazy thing. And every single time I talk about that sort of stuff, I'm like, is it fair to call it crazy? What if somebody was saying something else that I agreed with is crazy? No, it's crazy to be up there and be like, 75 million people who support Donald Trump are terrible. They're in the way of democracy. They're a danger to the country. But at the same time, mainstream Republicans are the sane ones, Mitt Romney and such. So on one hand, 75 million people voted for this, and it is mainstream, but actually it's not mainstream. And they should go with the people who are much fewer in numbers, the mainstream Republicans. So it's so dangerous because everybody believes it, but also the mainstream thing is not what most of them believe. It makes no sense. And he just kept repeating it over and over again. He had the red lights, and I saw the other angle that I think we were watching a Washington Post feed, and they did an analysis afterwards. Some lady was being like, this is so great and everything. And then some guy came out who was a left winger. I don't remember his name. I wish I did. I'd give him props. But he said, this is not one of the president's best speeches. They tried to set it up so it was red, white, and blue. You could only see red. It felt very ominous. It was very divisive. And not one of his best speeches.
Yeah, and I just don't understand. Last thing, I cannot understand how we were told for years now that racist people voted for Donald Trump, but then somehow Joe Biden gets the most votes ever. So where did all those racists go? They all had a change of heart.
So Will Witt's Florida Standard that he started is doing a lot of on-the-ground reporting, first source reporting, I'll call it. So the fact-checker websites are going to love that because they complain if you link to other places and you're not the primary source. Book in Tampa Middle School Library has instructions on anal sex and hookup apps. Very good. So Will Witt went to one of those town halls. He didn't pull an Alex Stein and rap. He just said, why is this appropriate? Because they have books like this.
Drew Hernandez where he starts yelling at the lady. Did you see that clip? Sorry.
No.
Drew,
but Will Witt's really growing up. He's looking more mature now. The ins and outs of gay sex. This is in the book for some reason. He talks about using Grindr. Parents rallied at the Hillsborough County Public School Board meeting today to vocalize their outrage at numerous books available to middle school students, including one that features explicit instructions on A and O sex, HJs, and how to use sex app. The county's online library catalog shows that 2 copies of Juno Dawson's This Book Is Gay are available at Pierce Middle School in Tampa, as well as 2 high school libraries.
Wait, stop. Sorry. So they're scroll up just a little bit. They're calling them. So they're blatantly. I guess this is Will Witt's publication, so this is his point of view.
Yes.
But how to use sex apps? I was under the impression that they're kind of dating apps. Maybe even friendship. Like,
well,
so they're
Grindr
just jumping
is
right to
obvious.
Grindr.
Yeah, well, Grindr is known as like a gay sex app, pretty much.
Where
like,
you can go if you want to get pox, if you need it.
Unsubstantiated claim, Eric Bowler.
Sorry.
Here are some pictures from the pages of This Book Is Gay. The section Boy on Boy. This is insane. This Book Is Gay includes cartoon sketches of a naked man with facial and pubic hair. The diagram has arrows pointing to the man's penis, testicles, bum, I like how that's in quotes. And nipples on guidance on practices noting trans men may have slightly different bodies. Well, it's good that they point that out. Do we have any more disturbing photos? No, but Will Witt went and spoke there, so I wanted to give a shout out to them. Oh, here's the weird thing pointing
And
to
haven't
this.
we seen something like this? Now, I saw that Will posted this. I didn't watch the actual video of him like talking, so I don't know exactly, but didn't we see a couple of weeks ago or maybe a month or so ago of a woman at one of these sort of like PTA meetings or something like that where she is reading the book and the woman who's hosting
Yeah, that
the
happens all the
meeting,
time. They don't want her to read it.
yeah, and it's like this you're proving my point and they don't care. How
This
is
is going to
that
be a
possible?
really weird part for people to just jump into the live stream, but here we go. Nipples. A lot of guys like having their nipples played with. So this is available to grade 7 and 8. I know you guys say 7th grade, but that is 12-year-olds. 12, 13, 11, 12, 13, we'll say, have access to this book. Testicles also to be treated with loving care. Neck and ears, these sensitive areas can be kissed and licked. This is disgusting. Like, what in what world? And like, obviously, if you're an adult, this is just like a stupid
Wait,
book for morons.
I'm sorry. Can you go?
Oh, you want more?
I just want to see. I mean, the bum.
Did you want bum up your bum? You have a prostate gland, so that's good for. If there's any parent out there that thinks that's good, or it's not hurting your child, then you're weird. You're weird, and you might be a bad parent. I won't even say probably. I'll say you might be a bad parent because I'm nice. If you think that it's not weird to be teaching your 12-year-old, let's say, we'll go with 12-year-old, your 12-year-old daughter to go and pick this up. Why do you need to teach a 12-year-old about what's pleasurable? That's the problem I had. You know, I love the show Mad Men, and I just watched it recently, all the seasons.
It's boring.
And they have a story arc where the daughter is caught touching herself, and she's like 11, and it's just like somebody had to write that. Somebody had to put that down on paper and suggest that this be in a show, and then somebody had to approve that. Why are you okay with that? Why do you need that? The same thing with Stephen King, Child Orgy and It. Why did you need this in there for the story?
I don't remember
another
that.
way you could get the underground sewer orgy? Why do you need this to be in the story? Because you're weird and you're creepy and you want this. It's one thing for Stephen King to write that in a book and be as creepy as it is, but to have a child act that out on screen with adults around filming it, and even if nothing graphic is happening in the filming of it, you're still simulating it. Why do you want that? What point do you have to prove? Are you trying to prove that like puberty is hard for kids? You don't need to have a child do that just to prove that. My point is that these lines are now so blurred that you'll be called a bigot if you don't want gross and weird things to happen and to children for them to be involved in it. If you want your child to look at a diagram of a naked man and so that they know what's pleasurable to an adult man, then you have a problem. There's something. I'm here to tell you that you're not normal and that you have a problem, and that just because it's 2022 and the last 4 years you've thought have been, this huge revolution of what's acceptable and not, it's not. You're weird, and 99% of the people disagree with you if that's the way you want to determine how weird you are. I have no problem being the guy who's just like, yeah, I'll say that it's weird and that you probably shouldn't be responsible for children.
But I mean, and I'm sure this has been mentioned 100,000 times over. Very simply, this wouldn't fly in a regular heterosexual nature. Like it wouldn't
fly in 99% of the countries in the world. It would fly in Canada, America, UK, Australia, New Zealand.
But why is it just it only works for the LGBTQS people, right?
Yes,
like
exactly.
That
if
book,
you were giving a
how?
I was just going to say,
how
if
is
you're
that
giving
possible?
if a straight man goes up and gives a child a porno magazine,
yeah,
but it's because it says it's gay, this book is gay on the cover, that it's allowed.
Yes, same thing with the drag shows that they're happening all over the place, and the story time and all that stuff. Yeah, but you wouldn't put just a regular stripper from, Jersey in there and have a regular woman stripper with, fake cans and a thong reading to
And
kids.
even if you were to like do like a Vegas thing, like where they're closed or something, which apparently is a thing, I don't understand. But like, would that be okay? No, it's still not okay.
Granted, I'm getting older, but it still seems like it happened so quick. Like this was not a thing. This was not a thing. Even when I was in college, like this happened all so quickly, and now it's like, well, this is normal. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Well,
no, it's not.
and I was
bro.
talking about this just today. Like, just because girls don't want to be mean, they've allowed so much to be quote unquote accepted. Like, girls used to talk about drag queens and going to a bar, and these guys are there. They dress up and they're like, it's not sexual at all. And most people didn't care because it was just women going to adult bars. But now that it's in front of children, I'm sorry to break it to you, but these are guys who want to dress up like pretty girls because they want the attention from men. And let's forget about the fact that this is what a caricature of women when there's not supposed to be any gender, but when you want to be a woman, you become a caricature of one.
But you can't
But
do
I'm
that for
sorry to
black
tell
people.
you,
You can't wear blackface.
I'll argue that to the day I die, Eric Butler. Yes, I can.
Okay. Well, your PM does it, so I guess you're cool to do it.
I'll dress up as Eddie Murphy in Delirious, red leather jacket with all them zippers. No, Michael Jackson jacket. I messed that 50 Cent line up. But now it doesn't seem it. Now we can't be as serious, But the point is, like, it's drag queen guys or guys who want to dress up as women, and if they're fine with it just being adult women who come to their shows and other gay guys who come to their shows, then that's fine. Do whatever you want. I'm not going to go. But if you want to pretend as if it's not sexual so that you can do it in front of children, then you should probably be charged with something.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing.
I'm willing to say.
So the bottom line is this has gone too far. I'm done. I'm done. I'm not doing Zim Zer. We're not doing. There's a man. There's a woman. Stop telling kids otherwise. You're trying to confuse them. You're an absolute predator. It needs to stop. I mean, this is the only time I actually feel lucky to not have children. I'm like, dude, I don't. I mean, you would literally have to homeschool. You would you can't. Who can you trust? But I'm getting triggered now. These people. I mean, look, you know where I stand on the transformer issue. I'm not, because once you do that, that's a
more
rug
than
pull.
meets the eye. They really are.
That's a complete rug pull, because once you believe that, you will believe anything else. And that's the problem I have with it. It's like, you guys just want to do your thing, fine, do your thing. But you're not going to come here, change the entire base level of reality, and then because now you can say, oh well, I mean, anything goes at that point because it's all fake. And I've said this 100 times. I'll say it again. Last thing, I promise. But if you can convince a lot of the population that a man can magically become a woman, it's easy to tell them that the air outside their front door is dangerous and they shouldn't go to work. They shouldn't go to school because the racist Rona-virus is right outside your front door. Because let's not forget, they also told us that Rona was racist and it targets climate change is racist, everything. So once you convince the people that a man can be a woman, everything is fair game. And that's the problem I have with it. It's gotta stop.
Eric, if it gets too hot for you in Arizona, I think if you just say that the weather's racist, you'll cool right down.
Okay. And then I can pay maybe like a little bit more in taxes and it'll go away.
No, you'll pay less. You'll pay a reverse BIPOC tax.
Okay.
Report and Opine on Instagram. I'm Andrew Does on there. AndrewSaysTV.com to see my latest episode with Bryson Gray and Louis Brackpool. Very polarizing point of view there. And of course, altreporter.com and Eric's on TatumReport.com. Anything else to say?
No, I think that's it, man. I think I got a little turned up at the end, but nope, that's it. That'll do it for me this week. Buy my book.
Down for what? And subscribe everywhere. Please and thank you. Shout out Getter. We're the best podcast on Getter. Prove us wrong.
Turn it up, Jordan.